Good evening, Final Fantasy Randomizer fans. Welcome to Week 3 of the Dr. Irby January 2021 edition. My name is Jat. I'm joined here in the booth by DVS7, and we are going to be racing some entrance floor shuffle today. DVS, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We just came off of a great tournament yesterday with some Chaos Rampage, and now we're diving into a floor and entrance here with the Duck Derby. I love floor and entrance shuffle, so I'm really excited to see how these ducks handle this.
Yeah, absolutely. And already you're seeing some variants from the various party comps here. We got a Thief Rainbow in the top right. We've got a Fighter Rainbow in the top left. I'm not quite sure what Shadows is running on that first. Oh, it's a Fighter. It says right on the top. It's a Fighter Rainbow as well. And then J-Man, unfortunately, is dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties, but his stream should be coming online about 8 minutes after the race starts, as we're just running on a delay. So he's up and running. He's racing. It's just we're not going to be able to see what he's doing. So he's going to pop in and we'll have to check in on how J-Man is doing. So a couple different comps, but like anything key for viewers who are watching Entrance Floor Shuffle for the first time?
Yeah, I'm going to be looking at Sarasang. I love Thieves. I actually prefer Thieves over Red Mages, and that's a very rare opinion, I think. But the one benefit that they have in Floor and Entrance Shuffle is their run percent. And especially if you're early leveled, you run into something like Sky 2 as one of your first entrances, that Thief is going to increase your likelihood to run and increase your ability to try to get through some of those deeper dungeons. So it's a huge gamble, and I'm hoping it works out for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, like the gamble is that... So what is the gamble? Like the gamble is that the Thief has a high damage potential, especially once he promotes, but he has very low HP totals, which compared to the Fighter or the Black Belt, which is going to make this party comp more susceptible, especially to non-elemental AoEs, and can make the Temple of Fiends Revisited quite dangerous. So just something of note. And it does look like J-Man's up and running. As I said, like it was just on a 10-minute delay, so his stream wasn't running when the race actually started, but he is up and running. We're going to get to see him race away. So a couple other notes. Towns are not shuffled, and a lot of the times at Entrance Floor Shuffled, the towns are shuffled. So Canaria, which is level 1, will still be available, but also notably level 2 and level 3 and 4 Magic will all be available in the early game, as we have a free ship. So that's a huge kind of safety consideration. So these runners, it wouldn't surprise me to see people go, either straight to Provoca or check like one entrance and then go to Provoca.
Yeah, one of the things I'm noticing, I feel like we've had a lot of Black Belt flag sets recently, just like even in the community overall. I don't remember what the scaling is for these flags. Hey, look, J-Man's bringing a Black Belt. But yeah, I was really... I'll be interested to see just how they're doing with particularly rainbow parties. And it looks like Black Belt Rainbow. And if that Black Belt is going to be an asset or a mistake.
Yeah, when I was discussing it with some of the ducks earlier, it seemed to go fairly 50-50 depending on if there's a grind and how soon you find that incentive masa, on whether it's better for a Fighter/Thief or if it's better for a Black Belt. So, if you're rooting for J-Man, what you want to see is, you go into Canaria Castle and boom, eyes on the first tile. If you're cheering for, Rubes or Shadows or Sarasan, you're hoping for an early incentive masa. And we're going to be finding out pretty soon here, as it looks like the runners have kicked off.
Rube showing his... really, he's been running for a good number of months now. Came up winning our tournament over the weekend. And the little bit of experience you saw in him going into Canaria Castle before going to the shops just shows you a high level of play. So keep an eye on Rubes. I would be expecting him to be towards the front of the pack.
Yes. So speaking of the pack, you are viewing 4 runners on stream, but this is 4 out of 31 contestants in this race. So this is a huge race. Our duck program has been a big success over the last few years, but especially this one with the highest number ever of new players getting involved in the game. So if you're interested in checking it out, come join us on the Final Fantasy Randomizer Discord. So unsurprising, everyone's going to go to Temple of Fiends right off the bat, go take care of Garland. Now, We are going to rescue the princess, but another difference between entrance floor and others is that the princess does not warp us to Canaria Castle, because we don't know where Canaria Castle is. So we'll come back and find her later once we find Canaria Castle itself.
Jet, I remember us talking, because we did a kind of casual run about a week ago, that this floor and entrance shuffle is not a shard hunt.
Right.
And you deal with shard hunts in floor and entrance very differently from just a standard floor entrance. And the reason I bring that up is we've seen some of our runners head to those left chests in Temple of Fiends, and I'm curious to see how good they're going to be at not checking chests, because chest checking is a huge time loss.
Yeah, so a reasonable amount of chest checking is going to help smooth over parts of the game. It can get you early armor, it can get you early gold, it can get you a cabin or a house if you're looking for one desperately. However, in this particular flag set, the runners can win without opening a single non-incentivized chest. So once again, the way Final Fantasy Randomizer is playing, these runners will need to light 4 orbs, which are denoted along the top of the trackers beside each runner: earth, fire, water, air. And to do that, they're going to have to kill 4 fiends. However, because it's entrance floor shuffle, they don't know where those fiends are, so they're going to have to dive through randomly generated dungeons in order to find those fiends. So that's kind of where entrance floor shuffle differs a little bit, but the core victory condition is the same. Light 4 orbs, get the key and the loot. But unlike traditional seeds, they don't necessarily need the rod or the cube or the Oxyale. Those entrances might not be required, so that's just something interesting. And once again, with no shard hunt, they do not need to open any boxes, as we have no loose. 21 incentive items, 21 incentive locations.
So we did see Rubes just go through Provoca, and he got a canal from Bicky, and we found a 22,000 gold key in the item shop.
Okay.
So right there's our and Brack at level 2. So right there's 2 of our key items. The canal is going to open up the majority of the rest of the map, and that key is great for getting some quick chests.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, we're running into a case of, well, now that you have more options available, that's a blessing and a curse. Because where do you go? When do you decide, something had toxic on the river, which is ugly. Sorry, I'm all scatterbrained. But yeah, I'll be interested to see which runners decide to do the deep dives and which runners decide to kind of go shallow on a number of entrances.
Yeah. Shoutouts to Ale Markin in chat, Odd Eye with Toxic. He is our tracker for tonight alongside our restreamer Darkmoon, so thanks a lot for both of them for helping us out, clicking the buttons, and using that internet bandwidth to get Final Fantasy Randomizer on the air. We couldn't, get these broadcasts for everyone without them. Yeah, so speaking of going shallow, the reason why going shallow can be an option is there's a number of locations which are guaranteed to be on the top floor, and the 2 most important ones are Ordeals and Canaria Castle. And with a key, Canaria Castle can have 3 incentive locations: the King, Sarah, and Canaria Locked. So that's a pretty high priority to find. So some runners could decide to go shallow, which is just check the top floor. Other runners might decide to go deep into the bottom of dungeons, trying to find, a fiend, or trying to find Marsh Cave, for example, which have other incentive locations. So that's just going to be something to keep an eye on. For now, though, simple exploration, go check out what's at the bottom of some close by stuff, get some basic money, so that way they can get enough money to go to Elfland, which is where both level 3 and 4 magic are located.
And then the other issue that they have to consider is money. Just because, especially, hey, Elfland's got level 3 and 4 magic, that's great, but you need to have at least a couple hundred gold for level 3, and it's usually over 1,000 plus for level 4. And so, I mean, they might have Nuke sitting there at level 4 for 2,000 gold, but they need to find some way to get the 2,000 gold. I know that we were talking about diving deep versus shallow. We know that Temple of Fiends is the Sky Maze, but we don't know what's past it. Right. So how do you decide, do I go and check past Sky Maze, or do I continue to check Matoya, which looks like it's Marsh Top, or go down to Elfland for Northwest and Marsh.
Oh, okay. So our tracker Aelmarkin again saying after Sky Maze's Ice Cave Circuit, which is is an incentive location, but is a big pain to deal with without warp or exit. So that's not surprising that he's skipping it. And we can see both J-Man and Rubes are opting to go to Elfland. J-Man has very, very limited gold. Rubes has a little bit more, but he's probably only going to be checking. Oh, he has barely any. He's probably only going to be checking level 3 magic, if at all. And he just decides to leave right away to not spend the time walking through the town. This is a good decision. Walking through the town takes more time than people realize, and one of the first optimizations that you need to make is like your town movement and deciding when to go to town. So I think this makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Rubes, I think in a small early lead, just a little bit based off of exploration, but at this point, there's so much that could go wrong. Some people have more levels, some people have less. Really way too early to tell. We're expecting this run to time somewhere between at the fastest just under an hour to over 2 hours for some runners. So there's a lot of variance here.
For sure. And just even picking up, I mean, we kind of see things with different eyes, but just the tiny things that you wouldn't necessarily notice from some of these runners doing it. For example, Chad, if you saw Marsh Top in this flag set, instant thought when you see Marsh Top?
Probably reset, unless I need money.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I am too. It's like, okay, if I see Marsh Top, if I don't see anything, it's just reset out and move on to something else. And so, like, even for checking magic, you have 4 magic shops in Elfland. If you don't have money to buy magic, don't waste the time checking magic you can't buy. Or do you risk it and check the magic to try to remember to come back? So, like, it's those tiny things that mean the difference between maybe not an hour to 2 hours, but an hour to an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. We do see our first Fiend fight on Saracen's side here, taking on Carry. This is definitely a scary fight, but relying on lit 3s is something that could work because this HP totals could be extremely low. This Carry could have as low as 300 HP, and also is going with defensive strats, which I like quite a bit. But if this Carry doesn't die to a few more lit 3s, this fight might be a little bit of a unfortunate time loss for Saracen here. I also saw Shadaus checking in the bottom right, checking a few chests on one of the sea floors, and that was a little bit of a slower check, but he might be trying to get some early money to get the key early, and that that does make some sense. So every runner's going for slightly different advantages. It does look like Saracen did wipe there on Carry, but is going back down, probably just going to go check the actually I'm not sure what he's going back down to. Maybe he wants another try with 2 black magic casters instead of 1 up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it might be that, might be low rolls on some of those, and he's just hoping for the RNG. Carry punched out at his Black Mage round 1. Okay, yeah, that makes sense where he might be just hedging his bets. And ooh, is that Nuke at level 3? No, I didn't see that earlier. And Warp.
Nuke and Warp, so those are huge spells. Warp is an extremely important spell in Entrance Floor Shuffle, as it allows you to get out of the bottom of floors. Like, for example, when you kill the Fiends, you can exit just by walking past them. However, when you find, like, Matoya, which is where you do one of the fetch quest turns, and there's something like that, and after you turn it in, there's no way out except for walking all the ways out. Warp speeds that up quite a bit, as well as helping out with Ice Cave and Ordeals, just like in the vanilla randomizer, I guess is a better way of putting it. So definitely a really important spell for these runners to pick up, and notably Red Mage and Black Mage learnable.
Yeah. I'm really glad that Saracen decided to nope out of that Carry fight. It looks like he went back and tried to do Brack strats, which is pretty low percentage chance. I can give him props for doing the try, but I like this decision to go down to Marsh Cave instead and dive this.
Checking twice is like a good rule of thumb if you're just starting out. Like, if you want to bash your head against something and you have other options, you can try it twice. If it fails, it fails. With more experience, maybe you don't try that again. But I like the fact that he was like, you know what, I don't know if I got unlucky there or if it was just like not meant to be. but after the failure to exit and then go for a different, go find more fertile pastures.
Right.
That's a nice adjustment there. I also saw another thing of note, which is that Life 2 was in slot 4 at level
Slot
3
4,
magic.
yeah.
And that is going to be white mage only. So what we mean by these slots and things like that is that magic in the vanilla game was locked out to certain casters. So for example, at level 1, a red mage can learn slot 1 and 3 white magic, and then once it promotes, it can learn slot 4 as a red wizard, but it can never learn slot 2, because in the vanilla game, I believe that was a harm spell, and the red mage could never learn harm spells. In this one, we keep the same slot permissions, but of course what spell is there changes. So that level 2 or level 3 life 2 in slot 4, no one except for the white mage is going to be able to learn it. So that's an advantage to any runners who brought a white mage compared to ones who brought 2 red mages or a bunch of black mages.
Right. And there's lots of discussion about white mages in the community. Some, poison geists. I don't know if we've seen that yet, but it looks like it's stone poison on those geists, which is going to make for a rough couple dungeons. But yeah, I agree with whatever it is you just said.
Yeah, just like, an advantage to a white mage. It's an advantage to a white mage.
Right.
There's a number of comps that might be taking like fighter, red mage, black mage, for example, or like a 3-man black belt, red mage, black mage, and they're going to be lacking that access to life, which isn't the most important thing in the world, but is fairly, it's something to look for if the Temple of Fiends Revisited is challenging.
Right. Well, and it's another one of those things you have to consider for, a vanilla run versus a floor entrance run. If you wind up getting into a marsh split that goes into a sea split that then goes into one of your fiends, they're saying finding Canaria Castle in Dwarf Cave, which is a huge pickup. With the canoe as well.
Yeah, to finish your point, if you end up with a really deep dungeon, life can be even more important. Now, speaking of important things, especially for the runner in the bottom left, Shadouse has found the eye tile, the 3 big eye tile, which there are 2 to 3 eye tiles, and this is arguably the best grind in the game, as it's worth a ton of EXP, and the eyes tend to have little to no damage capability and low HP, as in the vanilla game they're spellcasters, but in the randomizer, because the spells and scripts are all shuffled around, things that were traditionally spellcasters become a lot less scary, as you're essentially fighting a punch-only spellcaster, right? Imagine like a D&D character who gets muted when they're usually a wizard. Not a good time. So in this case, that eye tile is very, very juicy, and we want to see if J-Man ends up checking this location. It's pretty out of the way, so it wouldn't surprise me if you missed it.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a couple runners already go through this floor, and Shadouse is the only one that's checked that. I am very familiar with that particular tile, because it not checking that has come back to bite us a couple times.
Because we lost a Fall League race off that tile?
Yes, we kind of lost the championship because we didn't check that one specific tile, which happened to also have 3 eyes on it. So if Shadouse is able to take advantage of that tile, that could be a huge leg up for him, for sure.
I agree. Looks like Rubes is also attempting carry, but like you can see the difference in Rubes here versus when Saracen had it, in terms of Rubes has multiple casts of nuke, as well as a few more levels, so a little bit more survivable, plus nuke is going to do a lot more damage to carry. But keep in mind, this carry can have upwards of 1200 HP, so I said, hey, it can have 300, it can also have 1200, and Rubes' party just will not get the job done if this carry has 1200 HP.
Yeah, it looks like Rubes has used up a lot of his spells on the dive down. So he might take a wipe here, but even if he does take a wipe, he has enough information to know exactly what he needs in order to do an actually successful dive, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him just kind of like make a mental note and then come back when he feels like he's got enough spell slots to take it down.
Entrance floor can often end with a little bit of a fiend rush of fiends that you couldn't kill initially, but it looks like he does get it down, so I wasn't paying full attention to that screen, but maybe someone in chat can say, if they were keeping track of how much damage. But it looks like carry is, able to go down, and Rubes is our first runner on stream to light an orb. So once again, my name's Jad. I'm joined here in the booth by DVS, and you're watching the Final Fantasy Randomizer Duck Derby 2021 January edition, and we are playing Entrance Floor Shuffle. If you're new or you've never watched something like this before, please feel free to ask any questions in chat. We got lots of people here to help out, and we're more than willing to answer some questions. If you want to get involved, you can check out our Discord, where we have plenty of people who are willing to help you get started, just like many of these ducks did as recently as 1 month ago.
Oh yeah, I mean it's insane how some of these ducks have really learned this game and literally cut down their times from 5 to 6 hours for a run to about an hour and a half. Very impressive showing. And I want to bring us up to Sarasang again, and the reason I want to bring him up there is because he's the first one to go out of the inner sea for what we've been watching. And that's going to give him a leg up on the exploration. We already have Canoe. There's a higher probability that he's going to find something that the other runners aren't thinking of. And if he's able to find one of those incentive chests that might have floater in it, that could give him a huge leg up in terms of just accessibility around the entire map.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what's the big prize right now? And that big prize is the floater. So the floater allows you to summon the airship from the Ryukin Desert. As you see racing towards Ryukin, that's kind of a shout out to what everyone wants to do in Final Fantasy Randomizer scenes, which is get in the air as soon as possible, as the airship both moves quickly, moves as a crow flies, and also does not take encounters, which speeds up your overworld navigation quite a bit. So getting the floater, always very important. And they need both the Canoe and the floater to get airborne, but with the Canoe, there's only one piece of the puzzle remaining.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about the floater is it opens up Cardia Isles, or Cardia Island, which is another 4 entrances to check, as well as two more towns in Gaia and Lefane. So, especially with Entrance and Floor Shuffle, there's a possibility that you don't need floater for go mode. You could have all 4 of your fiends roll into even just the inner circle, but if one of those fiends lands on one of the Cardia Isles, then you're guaranteed to require floater for one of these seats.
Yeah, good point. So I did want to point out just another small strategic difference between the runners. Shadaus has been opening a lot of boxes. Saracen and J-Man have been opening some boxes, and Rubes has been mostly just opening the greed boxes, so the ones that require 2 or fewer steps essentially, or gets 4 boxes for 10 steps total. So that is going to make a big difference, as we see Shadaus here opening the greater than less than boxes. This is a relatively large time commitment for relatively little value, because once again, this is not moving him towards closer to winning. It's just moving him towards closer to safety and having gold for a few things. So while it will help this run be a little bit safer, it is costing a lot of time, and that I think is contributing to the small gap. The other thing of note, though, is that Rubes here doesn't have single pure soft. He has very, very little money, so Rubes is paying a different price by not opening boxes. So just something to keep an eye on of how much you want to take risks with box opening versus not.
Well, and one thing I will say, we do know that we have, I think it's gold plus 3s in Elfland for 40-something thousand gold. So we already know that our best defense is going to be very expensive. I personally like greater than less than, because it's 10 boxes that are all close together, and it is out of the way, it is more time, but if you're looking for a big deposit of gold or the higher potential for an item, there's a decent chance you might find a ribbon, you might find Sun Sword, you might find something in there that's going to be worthwhile. And as Shadaus showed, you can just warp out if you don't have anything. But we do see... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, he also has $35,000, which is way more than any of the other runners. So, he is getting advantages for that.
And that's before trying to sell anything. I don't know if there was maybe a silver armor or something like that to sell, or an opal shield, which is usually something that's pretty easy to sell. We'll see if he's able to take advantage of that. We do have Sarasang in the Temple of Ordeals, which I believe was the volcano entrance. And for those of you who've played the vanilla game but have not seen the randomizer, you'll notice that the Temple of Ordeals pillars in the vanilla game, you always pick the one closest to the bottom of your screen. In the randomizer, those pillars can send you absolutely anywhere. So I think Sarasang had a pretty good run through Ordeals. We found a nacho tile in that first trap tile there, pro ring +2, and some little bit of extra gold. But the big thing is what this incentive item is going to look like here. And the ruby. The ruby is going to be interesting.
It's essentially a fetch quest, as you have to go to Titan's Trove to turn it in, but we did have Titan's Trove early. I want to say Elf Castle, maybe? Or it was. I've seen it already.
That's what I'm thinking.
Let me check the tracker's notes. Elf Castle, yep. So that's something that he'll be able to turn in, relatively quickly, and could turn into that critical floater. I also wanted to point out that J-Man did wipe to carry, so Rubes is the only runner who's been able to get through carry so far. Not a big deal. It's going to take all of, a minute and a half once they're, an hour into the seed and just killing all the fiends to take care of her. But, just unfortunate because he was in that fight for a little bit of time, trying to push through. And as our tracker, Aelmarkin points out, Carrie had over 430 HP, so, may have been 100 damage short of killing her.
Well, I do want to talk about the ruby a little bit, as we're kind of seeing our runners retracing some steps, and that is the potential for a wormhole. So in typical, the typical vanilla game, Titans has two entrances. There's the east side and the west side. For the randomizer, Titans will always be the top floor of an entrance, and the east side and the west side could be at any two locations in the entire game. So there is a probability that entering Elfland Castle and taking the other exit of Titans could open up another entrance that has another incentive item or one of our fiends. So it'll be interesting to see where on the priority list that Ruby turn-in is going to be. He's relatively close to Elfland. I feel like Elfland and Ice Cave are pretty equidistant for Sarasang, and we'll see what decision he makes going forward.
Yeah, the only wormhole that's possible in the current flag set is a vanilla or French vanilla Titans, which is either it leads to Titan's Trove West or Sarda, in which case it opens one additional entrance. Rubes is going to be our first. Oh no, sorry, Rubes and J-Man both simultaneously diving Ice Cave. Now, unfortunately for J-Man, he's using this as an opportunity. Oh, never mind. I thought he was going to check the grind, which wouldn't surprise me. But unfortunately, the eyes have already been found. But there are plenty of other tiles that he could pick up that would be a benefit to him. So keep an eye out on J-Man's screen, as it wouldn't surprise me if he takes a little bit longer in here to determine if there's a grind available. Looks like no, he's just piecing out. He wants nothing to do with it, and Rubes also, unsurprisingly, does not want to check grinds.
Yeah, well, I think if they saw the poison Geists, I'm pretty sure Geists are in ice, so I would be pretty nervous about that, and a lot of people are nervous about ice just because it has a huge variety of different types of enemies, so I totally understand. But we also did see them pick up the black shirt, which is not one of our incentive items. Typically, the black shirt is the highest level of armor for a black mage, also giving time defense. Ooh, sorry, just realized Shadaus found the floater in Canaria Castle.
Ooh, so that money strap paying off for him.
Yeah. I'm kind of confused by that, though. Oh, you know what? It's because he could buy the key for 20k.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, the money strat. Him taking the time to open some extra boxes to get that key is going to be what leads him to be our first runner in the air here, which is a pretty substantial milestone. And yeah, just to finish your thought, the black shirt provides resistance to ice and time.
Well, well, the other thing is that it's a free cast of ice too. So it's a great way to make that white mage actually do some offensive damage. So you drop the black shirt on that white mage. The white mage can cast Ice 2, as your black mage and your red mage can cast your higher level offensive magic like the nukes. So it's definitely an offensive pickup as much as it is a defensive pickup.
So Shadaus almost taking a wipe on the way to this floater turn-in, but looks like he survived with his single fighter left alive. But luckily, keeping one up is more than okay as long as he can get to the floater alive. The floater turn in the Ryukyu Desert. Looks like the Sahags with Fire 3 are causing him a lot of grief.
Yep. Sorry, I wasn't trying to say anything. I didn't want to do the whole commentator curse thing. Sorry. That was close.
So, interesting decision here. He decides to get at the dock up here so he can navigate on land instead of navigating by sea because it's safer. That's a nice little heads-up play. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely agree. And at, what are we, 27 minutes in, it looks like Shadaus is our first runner that's up in the air. And we did notice that the wormhole isn't going to happen. We actually have Titan's East is Titan's West, and Elfland Castle is in fact and a Zeus Gauntlet in our Titan's Trove, as well as the Crown. So that Zeus Gauntlet is a great item because it casts Lit 2 or Lightning 2 an infinite number of times, kind of like the Black Shirt. So that's just another good casting item, especially for someone like Sarasang who has that Thief. It provides an opportunity for that Thief to get some extra damage out.
J-Man, our second runner in the air at the 27:50 minute mark, or 27:50 mark, and we'll have to see when Saracen and Rubes can follow up with there. At this point, there's limited locations left for them to check, so it's going to be interesting to see if they decide to go turn in that key, or like trying to get that key, knowing it leads to an incentive item, or if they're going to go check the northern continent or Ordeals, as northern docks are on, so they could go to like Waterfall, for example.
Yeah, and I did notice, I don't know if we had seen the level 6 white magic before, but Shadaus checking level 6 white magic, finding Cure 4 and Fade. Ooh. So it's nice to know exactly where they are. It kind of stinks that it's at level 6, and it kind of stinks that they're both the same, and you can see J-Man actually having the money to purchase those items. And I believe that is Red Wizard learnable. If I remember correctly, you know him better than I do.
2 through 4 are Red Wizard learnable. I didn't see what slots there.
It was 3 and 4, so they should be Red Wizard learnable, which makes the Red Mage actually a pretty good pick for this particular flag or this particular seed.
So yeah, Rubes looks like he's gonna be a while until he gets in the air here, continuing to just dive into some dungeons. Meanwhile, Shadaus and J-Man kind of following similar routes, saying, hey, you know what, I haven't been here yet, so I'm going to take my airship and head on into Ordeals.
Yeah, so it's again, this is where you start making those decisions of what do I actually need, particularly when you're looking at Shadaus, who's already up in the air. Do you actually need to go to the end of this Ordeals? Because the only thing that could be here is an incentive item, and you could get to all of your other fiends without having to worry about it. Though I just realized that there is one incentive item that we absolutely do need to get, and that is the loot.
Yes, I was just about to say, yeah. They are very, very likely to be checking incentive locations until they find that loot. Also, it's a little bit unusual to have checked the entire Inner Sea and have only found a single fiend, which makes there an increasing likelihood of one of the remaining 3 fiends, Lich, Tiamat, and Kraken, either being in the Chime location, in the Oxia location, or locked behind the Rod Lock or the Cube Lock. Now, of course, we have the Rod and the Cube already, but the Chime and the Oxia both do open up extra entrances that could lead to those fiends.
Well, another thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, another thing is we haven't yet found a split, I believe. And so splits are something that are kind of unique to Entrance Floor Shuffle in terms of concept. There's 2 floors in the entire game that actually have 2 exits. And those exits, essentially... Oh, we just found one.
There's one of
Saracen.
them on the top right.
Yeah. So there's 2 different ways you can go from this floor, which basically means there's 2 different bottoms of this dungeon, which means there could be up to 2 fiends in this split, which makes them very important to find. So because of the fact we haven't found any yet, it increases the likelihood that one of them is going to be behind the Chime or the Oxale, which increases the likelihood that we're going to need those to find one of our fiends. My spoon's too big. Putting out the randomizer command. I don't know if we have that command available, but let us know if you have any questions about what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to bring up your point on the splits, we really haven't had that deep of dungeons in this so far. Like, we haven't had that many floors deep. And the fact that we haven't seen Marsh Split now also puts in the back of your mind, well, where are all of the floors? Is there going to be one really, really deep floor, and what is it going to lead to? So, you know, there's always the possibility that the left side of the C split is going to have a couple floors that then goes down to Marsh Split, which then has 2 different fiends on either side of Marsh Split. So, anything can happen with these. There's no such thing as being in the lead until we know where every single fiend is and know how to get there.
And even then, you can still be underprepared for Temple of Fiends Revisited. Yeah, shout outs to Mega Dungeons, which is what we call it, where both splits are in the same dungeon. I am they. Why do 2 of the runners have a different battle screen? So it's actually a fun percent flag, which is what we call flags that don't affect the difficulty or, you know, how the seed actually works, which is just a modern battle screen, which is just an option you can turn on. So if you prefer the traditional battle screen, you can use that, or if you prefer the modified one, you can use that instead. So that's a good question, and it's, as I said, a fun percent flag.
Yeah, it basically just takes off the border screen, and some people like it, some people don't. You'll also notice Shadaus is our runner who's sporting some wonderful new character sprites that have been created by... keep asking questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But Shadaus is sporting some of our new character sprites that have been created by members of our community. These particular sprites are ducks, and one of our new ducklings decided, hey, I'm going to make character sprites that are ducks, and Shadaus is showing them off today.
Yeah, lots of different people. I mean, speaking of Mega Dungeons, a while ago we had a special Final Fantasy Randomizer C generated, which was just one Mega Dungeon where you basically saved every 10 floors. We've also had, you know, a number of other crazy things going on, and like development's very active. Our creative channel, which is where these sprites were generated, is very active. So if you're interested in checking that out, come join us. Ooh, we do have our second fiend. We have found Lich, I believe, in that C split.
Well, I'm gonna leave it to Ale for that one. I do know. Yes. Okay. So I do know that Shadaus has found Marsh Bottom, and Shadaus also found Kraken Floor.
Ooh. Okay.
So that's 3 of 4. It is all we need right now is Tia. So again, and it's you have to be able to switch your mindset from I need to find incentive items to I need to kill fiends. And we'll see if Shadaus is able to make that change and say, it doesn't matter where incentives are, I just need to find Tia.
And the loot.
And the loot.
Which is, of course, an incentive item. Now, I did want to point out to 2 different strategies here. Saracen, unfortunately, was using Brack, which is poison type, on Lich. And while that is a fantastic plan against the later 2 fiends, which are Kraken and Tia 1, at least the first versions of them, it unfortunately does not work against Lich, because Lich is undead, and poison does not work so well against undead enemies. So he did get through, but just a small shout out. Crab Cakes pointing out the Thief White Mage strat is the superior strat, so, you know, who needs black magic casters? Keep them both down.
I do want to call out something. Ego Dev, I believe. Feel free to correct me if I say your name wrong. But Ego Dev is saying, Hey, still got a lot to learn. I have rando experience, but barely any knowledge of FF1. Well, the randomizer community has something for you too. If you would like to go through the vanilla game, but you don't enjoy the ridiculously long screen transitions and the very slow walking, we actually have something that we call vanilla-ish. So if you go to FinalFantasyRandomizer.com, one of our presets is for vanilla-ish, which is essentially the vanilla game, but with all of our speed hacks and with all of our bug fixes in it that allow you to really enjoy the vanilla experience of Final Fantasy 1 with a lot of the conveniences that we have here in the randomizer.
Yeah, no, good shout out to Vanilla-ish. Also, 2x experience, essential. It's a speed
yes.
hack in and of itself. So J-Man finding Kraken, I wouldn't be surprised if he he also decides to not go. Once again, it's on like the very first floor. So you can always come back to that later. Kraken, very susceptible to that Brack. Unfortunately for Crab Cake, Saracen correctly did revive his 2 Newt casters, but Thief White Mage is a very, very fun comp to play, but not the fastest when you have level 3 Nuke, perhaps.
I mean, I'm going to be
you're
honest, CC would
exceptionally good at the
destroy me
game.
with her Thief White Mage most days anyway, so I'm not one to argue with her.
Yeah, that's true. But that may be that CC's Crab Cakes is good at the game, not so much the comp.
Jesus.
So
chat, I love you, man.
J-Man, has found the TNT there, so we haven't yet found the dwarf cave yet, but we have found both the adamant and the TNT, and that's going to make diving to the bottom of dungeons quickly quite important, as turning in 2 items could very well be the thing that leads to the loot there.
Yeah. Well, and we have seen a number of our runners in the air now, but I don't think we've seen the Cardia Isles yet.
Yeah.
Which I'm a little bit surprised by. It's also tough to see Rubes still not turning in that key to get that floater of his. And I think he's pretty much done everything he can except for that one key. But we'll see if one of our runners decides to go off to the Cardia Isles, and we'll see if the end of this waterfall here on Sarasang's side is going to lead to the loot, or if it's going to lead to something else. And we have a 38-minute bridge boss on Rube's screen, so big shout-outs to defeating that bridge boss.
Yeah, so the robot has given us the Oxyale, which is going to let us get into quote-unquote Sea Shrine in Onrak, but of course because the entrances are shuffled, we don't actually know what's at the bottom of it. But that is, another entrance which could potentially have Tia, so something to be aware of. But it looks like Rubes is finally going to be turning in that key and will be in the air shortly here.
Yeah. And if I'm Rubes, I'm going to feel very behind once I see Floater, because he knows that key has been there all game, and now he's got to put on the jets. But again, he is our only runner. Oh, actually, you know what? Sarasang has taken down Lich, but he's one of our only 2 runners on stream that have lit an orb, and I'm curious to see how Rubes is going to handle all of these different entrance dives once he finally does get in the air.
Yeah, so once again, we are watching 4 runners on stream here, but there are 31 runners in total in this race happening right now. Our duck class is large and proud and doing very, very well right now, so big race going on. So, when you say you feel behind, it's not that you feel behind of, these 3 fine racers on screen. You're also feeling behind of the weight of 30 other runners who are all pushing you to, go as fast as possible. So that's got to be something that's weighing heavily on his mind. Going back to your Cardia Isles point, yeah, I'm a little surprised that no one's gone there yet, but I also can see why. Like, sometimes you want to knock off a single area of the map, and that's what some of these runners have been doing. We do see our marsh split in the bottom right here by Shadows.
And we do see Sarasang, the waterfall was vanilla. So getting up that Oxyale from the robot actually was a huge benefit, because Sarasang can now dive directly into that Sea Shrine entrance without really losing any time.
Waterfall is actually quite a nasty place. If Tia is behind here, that's going to be one of the last locations or the loot. This could be the loot too, which would be huge.
Yeah.
Because you don't really want to go to Waterfall because of how long it takes you to get there.
Right.
Compared to the Cardia Isles. Now, on the other hand, if this bottle turns into, say, the defense sword, this is going to be a little bit of a time loss for Saracen.
Suddenly calculating all of my thoughts about the defense sword and its value based on the time spent diving the dungeon. Oof, Shadouse. Shadouse has found Tia. So, what that means is we are... Oh, but we don't have the loot.
Hey,
So,
there we go.
come on. I'm remembering. So with that, we know where all of our fiends are.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's really going to be the hunt for the loot.
Correct.
And trying to figure out what that is, and it might be behind that bottle that Sarah Sang just picked up from Sarda.
Correct. It also could be in the dwarf cave, for example, and that bottle could lead to the chime, and then the dwarves could be there. So there's still a lot of... We can't count our chickens until we find that loot. And once we do that, then as commentators, we will have all the information.
Right.
But yeah, Bridge of Destiny, a really good location to get a few levels on. It has one of the highest encounter rates in the entire game. I think it is the highest, actually. I can't remember if this air floor has the same encounter rate, but I know it has, very, very high encounter rate and good EXP enemies, as it is one of the last locations you go to before the Temple of Fiends Revisited. So good to get a few levels here. As you get, you find your 4 Fiends, and once we get the loot, you do need to start considering, am I Temple of Fiends Revisited ready? What levels am I looking for? Do I need to grind? And, that's something that's going to start running through these runners' minds at around the 42-minute mark here.
Well, and we do have vanilla war mech for these particular flags. So anytime one of our runners is on the Bridge of Destiny, we have that chance of our robot chicken popping up and trying to take down our runners. And depending on how leveled up you are, that could be a blessing to give you the 42-some thousand experience for each one of your light warriors, or it could be unrunnable and wipe your whole party. So we'll just be keeping an eye out for any runner that's on the Bridge of Destiny leading up to Tiamat.
And Shadow's showing really nice usage of the Brack strats there to take down Tiamat. Once again, a 26.9% chance to kill Tiamat there. And also great, no race day jitters, remembering that was Marsh Split and he has to dive back in. That is such an easy thing to forget. Unfortunately, nothing here. But that can be catastrophic if you forget to check the other side of the split.
I have done that so many times. You get, especially when you find something at one end of the split, you get super excited.
Yep.
And then completely just miss out on the other thing that's on the other side. So that was in Cardia Forest. Shadouse is heading up to Cardia Swamp, and we'll see how he handles these. We're still really looking for that Dwarf Cave. Like, Dwarf Cave is the thing that you want to... Hey! Look at that! A Dwarf Cave! And a ribbon in that second box there. And we'll see... Ooh, the tail. I'll let you talk about the tail, chat, and why that's an interesting item for us to pick up at this point, and how that differs between our 4 parties here.
Yeah, so first off, the ribbon provides resistance to all elements, which is really, really, really important and irreplaceable, so that's really nice to pick up. The tail will allow our parties to promote, and remember earlier in the broadcast we were talking about the fact that Fade and Cure 4 were both in slots 2 and 3 and level 6. Well, the tail will allow us to promote our Red Mage to a Red Wizard, or our Fighter to a Knight, so that will allow the Red Wizard to learn those, for example, and so promotion is really nice. In order to promote, however, they have to find Bahamut. And I don't know if we've seen that yet. So without Bahamut, it's going to be a decision on, how far do I want to search in order to promote. The other thing about promotion is that it affects different parties differently. The Black Belt actually doesn't want to promote. It gets less magic defense per level after promotion. So you actually want to delay promotion as much as possible. On the other hand, I just saw that on Shadow's screen. On the other hand, the fighters want to promote as soon as possible because they only start gaining spell charges after they promote. So for a fighter comp, finding Bahamut right like that is beautiful for Shadows. He's just going to promote away, but J-Man may have a few more decisions to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we did, really Cardia Isles paid off. We found dwarves, we got our tail, we got a ribbon, and we ended up finding Bahamut adjacent in Cardia Grass, as well as finding Tiamat. So that was a very loaded Cardia Isle. It does look like Rubes has picked up Kraken, and so Rubes coming out with Invis strats, which is very good because Kraken hits very hard, throwing out the Brack and getting the Brack to land, and that is a one-hit kill against Kraken, one of the scariest of the Fiends, and Rubes is lighting his second orb. He knows, I don't think he's found Lich yet, and he still hasn't found Tiamat. So we'll see where he goes from here.
So Shadows is making the interesting play. Actually, no, this makes sense. He's going to go do the slab turner, but he's just killing carry while he's here. So that makes a lot of sense. This is what we call proximity routing, which is instead of routing by like density or routing by that, it's like, where's my airship currently? So Zogmek Zogmek. We're gonna go Zogmek. Is there a difference between from a black belt and a master with the class change? And the answer is yes. There's exactly one, and it is a downgrade. The black belt gains 4 magic defense per level, and the master gains 1. Every other class gets positive benefit, but the black belt gets nothing but negative.
And that's actually one of the big things that, you know, you'll see a lot of runners in their decisions about bringing black belts or not bringing black belts. That promotion question ends up affecting the run a lot more than you might think. So for someone like Shadows, it was a very easy decision to promote. J-Man is going to have to make a pretty tough choice once he finds this tail.
So J-Man unfortunately did try and check this what we call small Cardia, which is the little tiny island, and unfortunately those are always dead ends in Entrance Floor Shuffle, so no reason to check that particular location. Things like the tail also impact strategy in a really like subtle ways. For example, black belt thief comps are not nearly as good as fighter thief comps, and the reason is because the black belt really doesn't want to promote, and the thief really needs to promote. So that conflict of interest makes it a little bit less synergistic than some of the other compositions.
Sorry, yeah. I was applauding J-Man for turning on the Kill the Hooray Dwarf flag in our Fun Percent flags. I am a Kill the Hooray Dwarf myself, and it's just nice to see that spreading throughout our community.
Get into the air. Finally picked up that key. Gonna go turn in. He has done everything else that he possibly could, just delaying that as long as possible. So a little bit unfortunate for him, but this should turn out, you know, for him. And once he's in the air, I'm sure he will get his foot on the gas. Same thing here with the entrance J-Man just went in. The top of Cardia double, always a dead end as well. So once again,
so
there's a little...
just to...
Oh, go ahead.
No, we were both doing the same thing, probably. I was just going to say, you know, where we are right now in the big picture, the goal of this is to light your 4 orbs. You got to find Lich, you got to find Carry, you got to find Tia, you got to find Kraken. As soon as you kill those 4, you need to have the key and the loot in order to enter the final dungeon, which is Temple of Fiends Revisited. Of our 4 runners on screen, Rubes is quote-unquote ahead, tied with Shadows, who both have 2 orbs lit, whereas Sarasang and J-Man both have 1 orb lit. Again, anything can happen in this randomizer. We still have a ton of time, but our goal is to light orbs. It's not to explore every single dungeon. It's not to open every single box. It is simply to light the orbs, find that loot, and go down and take care of, what's his name?
Chaos.
Thank you. I was on a roll there, and I forgot the name.
Yeah, and you're watching the Duck Derby 2021. My name's Jad, and I'm joined here in the booth by DVS. Say hello, DVS.
Hi. Hello.
DVS is here all night. You know, you can listen to forgetting the final boss of the name after playing the randomizer 200 times.
It's been a long weekend, man. Been a lot of stuff.
So yeah, so as we enter this kind of late mid-game, really that loot top of mind for all of our runners, something that they're really going to have to try and find. Entrances we haven't checked. I don't have A.L. Markin's entrance tracking sheet open, but I believe it's like the chime location is pretty much it, and it's either the chime location or it's the slab turn-in, which is going to give us the loot.
Right.
We've seen Ice, Ordeals, Titan's Trove, Earth. Have we seen Sky? That's the only incentive location that I haven't seen.
Yeah, we saw Sky 2. Sky 2, I believe, had the herb. and the herb turned into the defense sword -5, which I believe Sarasang is the only runner that's done that.
Okay.
But feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. The big benefit to the defense sword is that the defense sword is free cast of ruse, which essentially is is 33% of maximum evade. So if you're able to cast that ruse 3 times, then you have maximum evade, and is very, very important if you're going into Temple of Fiends.
I like how you switch there from 1/4 to the less accurate 33% instead of 1/3. That's Twitch math at its finest.
Yes,
we are getting
it's a long weekend.
There we go. This is actually huge for Saracen, who's was in a little bit of a deficit because of the sailing all around. But because he sailed all around, he was one of the first runners in Waterfall. Waterfall led to the Oxyel, which led to Sarda, which led to Bottle, and Bottle turned into that critical loot, which means that we know that is the play that our runners need to make. So Aelmarkin, our tracker, once again, shoutouts to Dark Moon as well for restreaming for us tonight. But the Sitar, or the loot, is another fun percent flag, which is multi-instrumentalist Sarah, which changes the name of the loot to a random musical instrument. But that does mean that Waterfall's required, and that's not the easiest location to go to. I noticed that J-Man is already there, but we're gonna have to keep our eyes peeled, on Shadaus's and Rubes' screens to see when they decide to go there.
Yeah, Rube's just finding the Bridge of Destiny, heading off to Tia. I'm not sure if he found Lich yet. It looks like Lich is Ordeals, and Ordeals is not my top place to go to. I would expect Rubes to try to go Waterfall and Onrak before going to check Ordeals. We'll see what decision he makes. But yeah, Shadaus is really starting... Ooh, and Shadaus going back to the 3-eye tile we found in what we've been referring to in chat as the Deng room, because Dengwu has quite the history with this particular room. I really like this decision. I like, because I just saw level 17. Especially coming back late game where you have 5% per key item as our experience boost. This is going to be quick work to try to get up to probably around mid-20s. I'd be looking at level 24, 25 before leaving, and then it's merely heading out to Lich and heading right into Topher.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Now note that Shadaus has not found that loot, so he is getting these levels kind of a little bit preemptively, but I agree. At this point, the extra key items is relatively minor, and he's going to, be able to fly through the rest of the seed after taking this eye for a little bit. So, Shadaus in really good shape with 3 orbs lit. Yep. I hope he uses exit here, unless he hasn't finished diving this dungeon. Okay, looks like he hasn't finished diving this dungeon.
Yeah, I don't remember what's at the end of this dungeon.
It is Matoya. So he's turning into crystal. Which
and
I think is the Masa. It should lead to the Masa, right? Masa or Ribbon. Oh, it leads to the Chime. Okay.
Yeah, so I like the move. It seems like he was more proximity routing and it was on the way, which I think is a good decision. I think that he was probably feeling a little bit pressured to move quickly, and it looks like Ael's telling us that the crown is what leads to the ribbon, and so therefore it's probably slab to Masamune, and especially for someone like Sarasang, trying to find the Masamune might be more of a priority for him than it might be for some of the other runners.
Yeah, I agree. So Rube's finding the all-important dwarves, who we know does not have the item he's looking for. Meanwhile, Saracen has ended up at Tia. So our runner is actually in fairly similar situations here. Shadaus, I think, is looking at this chime location for... Yeah, okay, good. I like that decision, Shadaus. Reset out of there. You don't need chests.
I 100% support that decision.
He is looking for Lich, and yeah, this is the routing that I think is the percentage play in terms of time per location, which is to check Chime first, then do Waterfall, then do On-Rack, and then do Ordeal. So he will last location Lich, but he will also get that critical loot. So really very little time wasted, and Shadows has a clear pathway. I think he's our first runner with a clear pathway to Temple of Fiends Revisited here, right? Because it's going to be Waterfall, On-Rack, Ordeals, Go mode.
Yeah, I could see him stopping. Like he's got to stop at Gaia at some point to turn in that bottle. But I mean, really, those are the only things that are left, and they are exactly where he needs to go. This is one of those. I don't think that cube or rod was required, unless I mean, Ale can feel free to correct me. But it goes to show that sometimes you don't need every single one of those key items. Oxyel happened to be required. Oh, they both were required? Hey, look, everything's required. Never mind. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, but your point is valid. Sometimes these are not all required items. It just so happened in this particular flag set, we needed the ruby, we needed the airship, the floater, we needed the cube, we needed the rod, so on and so forth. Yeah, so we're at the 56-minute mark right now, approaching the 1 hour mark. Because of the slightly later floater, it's led to this flag set taking just a touch longer, and also the fact that essentially Waterfall and Ordeals are the two most likely to be skipped locations, and those are both required in this flag set. So just the fact that every single location was essentially required did slow this down a little bit as well. J-Man, finding a pretty important location for him. Finding these Mudgalls. Unfortunately, they have actually, that's pretty good for him, maybe. Potentially, depends on if you can kill them. But he finds this tile, and this is worth a ton of EXP, and can be worth can be a pretty good black belt grind, if it wasn't quite so scary.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what level that black belt is on, and whether or not they have a ribbon. So, for those of you, a couple people were asking about black belt versus master earlier, and there's one thing we didn't talk about black belts yet, which is the fact that armor is bad. In the vanilla game, there was actually a glitch which allowed armor to be totally fine. But in terms of the randomizer, which is how it's supposed to work, if you put any armor on the black belt's added in absorb goes down to 0. So if you put just a ribbon on your black belt, that ribbon has 1 absorb, your black belt now has 1 absorb. So you have to be very careful and choosy about what you equip to your black belt, because they actually increase absorb per level. So if you have a level 20 black belt, you have to make sure that if you equip them, they have to have at least 20 absorb, or you're actually hurting your black belt instead.
Yeah, but what you're saying is 100% correct. You can also, though, just equip like a gold bracelet plus 3 to them, which, as you said, will give them more absorb than their level, and then they can wear a ribbon at the same time. So if that is the grind tile he chooses to use, he probably wants a second ribbon, and then you just equip a gold bracelet plus 3, that ribbon, and then you're pretty much good to go. Because he hasn't found that eye tile, that is probably going to be the best tile he's found if he has, 2 ribbons, or can get his black belt just slightly higher level.
Right. It looks like Shadows has gotten his Oxyel. He's about to head down into Sarda to then pick up that bottle. He's going to jump over and then take out find Lich hopefully at that Ordeals, and it looks like Shadows is our first runner on stream that's heading off hopefully soon to Temple of Fiends Revisited.
Yeah, he does still have to check the Ordeals entrance, but I'm gonna assume that's coming, like, essentially right now. Because I don't think he's got much else. He's gonna do the bottle turn in, and I think that's pretty much that. Yeah, J-Man actively looking for a grind right now. That's a very common reason to go to this room in Northwest Castle, but that's not what he's going to be looking for. Meanwhile, Rubes, following in Shadows' footsteps, gets that Oxyel, which means he will soon have his loot as well.
And let's look at J-Man's screen, because he did find a potential grind. It's really going to depend. It looks like that Whiz-Vamp had very low HP, as well as those Zombie Ds. So this might be an opportunity for him to get a pretty decent grind going. It's not the ideal grind because the greater the number of enemies on the screen, the worse it is for the black belt because it just takes that many more turns to wipe down the enemies. But this is very, very good news if I'm J-Man.
I agree.
And just to kind of talk about, Rubes and Shadouse right now. Rubes, the only orb that he's missing is Lich. Same thing with Shadouse. It looks like Rubes is maybe 1 or 2 minutes behind Shadouse, but there's still a lot of opportunities for Rubes to catch up, depending on what Shadouse has done. Oof. And it looks like Shadouse is heading off to Lefane.
I like this
probably
decision.
Pick up his Massa.
Yeah, I think picking up the Massa is probably worth it when you're in the area. Rubes is making the exact same decision. I think you want the Massa when you're this close to it. Like, you've already cleared the whole game, you know this is the Massa. You just go pick up the Massa, because the Massa is the best sword in this game by far. It has extremely high base damage, it has extremely high hit percentage, which increases how early you get extra hits, and it has a good enough crit rate. It's not the best in the game, but very, very close to the best in the game, that it can just absolutely shred through bosses. So just a huge improvement for swords compared to, I believe, like an ice +3 or, a bad defense sword.
Yeah, well, and looking at Shadouse's inventory, I saw Vorpal -2. There was a ice sword -2, I think. So there really was no good endgame weapon. I mean, even the defense sword, which is a very powerful weapon, rolled -5. So finding the vanilla Masamune is by far the best weapon that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
And both Rubes and Shadouse are quickly going to be making their way to Ordeals and then heading off to our first look at Temple of Fiends Revisited.
So yeah, like, these runners, this is a very much a full clear seed, and like, big shout outs to our ducks here. Like, my goodness, Shadouse and Rubes both essentially full clearing the game in under an hour and 5 minutes. This is every single entrance, every single incentive location checked, which is like, big shout outs to them for getting this done so quickly. Very, very impressive performance by both of them. Looks like Rubes has one more location to check. Come on, reset out of that. You don't need anything. But Shadouse and J-Man both going to be on Lich almost simultaneously.
And Shadouse opting to pick up the herb here, which is I think an interesting play.
Yeah, he might have been hoping it was the defense sword directly, just forgetting that this was guaranteed to be a fetch quest, because that's definitely worth the 10 steps if you're just going to go pick up the defense, but unfortunately for him, not the case.
Yeah. And really the next question that we're going to have to start talking about is, when are you ready for Temple of Fiends Revisited, the final dungeon of the game? I don't know. Is a good answer. I'd want to dive at least level 24, but you never know. You could end up with some first turn nukes or nuclears. It looks like Shadouse picking up a ribbon here from Astos, which I think is a great pickup, and it's nice that it'll very quickly lead to the Lich fight on the other side of this seafloor.
Yeah, so he hopefully is going to use Warp here. That will allow him to go up just a single floor, so that way he can quickly navigate back around, the seafloors there. So Burt Reynolds asking in chat, just got here, what's happening? So, as mentioned a few times, I'm Jad, I'm hanging out with EVS here. We're watching the Final Fantasy Randomizer Duck Derby 2021, and we are watching an entrance floor race. This was Oops All Required. We had Lich in Ordeals, we had Loot in Waterfall, so they have checked every single entrance, turned in every single key item. Yeah, and we are ending up towards near the end of the game with Shadouse about to go fight his final fiend, Rubes on the way to fighting his final fiend. J-Man knows where his remaining fiends are and just needs to clean them up. And Sarasan, I believe, also knows where his remaining fiends are and is in the process of cleaning them up. So we could have, 4 Temple of Fiends Revisited entrances within 5 minutes of each other, 5-10 minutes of each other, which is very, very close for these ducks. Mirage Tower was a Cardia bottom. I think it was the Cardia, the biggest Cardia Forest.
Yeah, and we actually experienced here one of the tough things, especially for a runner who's been running for a long time. We had a 20,000 gold or 22,000 gold key in Elfland or in Elfland, and it turned out that key got us the floater in Canaria locked. And so we had the situation where Shadaus was opening tons and tons of boxes at the beginning of the game, but that gave him enough money to buy the key, which put him as the first person in the air. On the other side, we had Rubes, who decided to focus, and Sarasan, who decided to dive dungeons and check every entrance, kind of putting the key off until last, and therefore were the last ones in the air. So two very different styles of play, which had two very different effects. And hi, Cheese, good to see you, man.
Yeah, I was giving Shadaus a little bit of a tough time for opening like just the pure amount. Like he was opening boxes, for example, on the floor on the way to Mermaids on like TFC floor, which is like pretty slow boxes. But he's done a really, really, really good job of hitting the gas after opening those boxes in the early game to get what he needs. Like he's identified his victory condition and gone after it, which like big shout outs. So while maybe don't open the boxes on TFC in the future, opening boxes to get money for the key makes a lot of sense. And then, knowing when to stop opening boxes, he's done a really good job of that. So credit has to be given where credit is due.
Right. Right.
And if you're wondering, by the way, I was just going to say, our Duck is what we call our new players in the Final Fantasy Randomizer community. So the Duck Derby is essentially a welcome tournament for all of the players who have joined in the last 6 to 9 months. So that is what you're watching.
Yeah. Well, and as we kind of talk about in the community, Jat and I being two recent Ducks, we were in the previous Duck Derby. It's a unique program because it's essentially some of the best runners in the game teaching you how to beat them, teaching you every single aspect of the game, all of the strats, all of the stats, all of the ways to just keep driving that time down. And we create this tournament so that new runners can enjoy playing this game against new runners and having a tournament that's specifically designed for them without having to worry about some of our veterans just clearing them out of the tournament in the early stages.
So keep in mind that we do have... Oh wow,
wait,
Sarasan... Wait, what?
What? Wait, Sarasang was in go mode?
Our tracker Ale quickly marking some orbs off.
Wow.
But yes. Okay, well, just very briefly, if you're interested in trying this out, we have this tournament every 6 months. Now's a perfect time to join. You can have 6 months of practice for the next Duck Derbies and show all those ducks who are boss so that you can become the next Duckling Supreme. Sarasan, in Temple of Fiends Revisited, actually our first runner on screen. Remember how I said we might have 3 entrances within a few minutes of each other? It looks like that is definitely the case because Rubes is about to go kill Lich. Shadaus is about to enter the Temple of Fiends Revisited, and Sarasan is already there, so this is going to shape up to be a very close race between our 3 on-screen runners here.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is getting to the point with how close, especially Sarasang and Shadaus are, like, checking these two, what we call validation chests, like, little things like that is where you start seeing the difference between first place and second place. So we'll see how both of them handle this. Looks like we have unrunnable mage fighter tile, and yeah, we'll get our first look to see how bad this Temple of Fiends is going to be. I would say that if this Temple of Fiends ends up being really ugly, I would give a little bit of an edge to Shadaus, because Shadaus is our only on-stream runner who knows where that 3-eye tile is and can get some quick levels if they need to. But hey, it might come down to how well do these runners know how to analyze the situation and react accordingly to go fast and not die at the same time.
Yeah, another thing to note here is we are dealing with different party comps, as Saracen has that thief rainbow, whereas Shadows has the fighter rainbow, and that thief has a lot less HP and is much more susceptible to going down to a scary fiend than the fighter is.
Right.
Shadows' levels are also very low. It looks, yeah, wow, that is low. So he is going to be relying on nukes and fades, which could work. Meanwhile, Shadows is going to be relying on more traditional strategies. That level 18 is extremely aggressive to be going into this Temple of Feeds Revisited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, the one thing, yeah, he's got nuke casts that are kind of low. There's a good amount of life. As that Masamune has 2 ribbons, it's really dangerous. It's risky. It's just gonna who knows? I honestly don't know if this is the right decision or the wrong decision. I think if I were him, I probably would have picked up a couple extra levels on those 3 eyes when I was walking by them. But we'll see if he runs into a huge problem or continues to just walk straight through it.
Yeah, like Rubes does have the advantage here of being like a little bit better prepared than our 2 runners on the right. But like you can see, Saracen struggled to take out 2 worms, and yes, those are scary enemies, but he actually lost his lead entirely to Shadows just on that 1 tile.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're about to see Lich didn't do a whole heck of a lot, which is kind of what Lich does. Lich 2, what we call the first time you fight the Fiends 1, the second time where the Fiend refights 2, so Carry 2 is coming up. Lich 2 didn't seem to do a whole heck of a lot, died relatively quickly. Well, let's see if Carry says the same. Yeah, oh man, Saracen using elemental AoE spells against things that resist it, it's not the incorrect move because he has to save his nukes, but it's just like really, really slowing this dive down.
Yeah, I don't remember where there's fast. I was wondering where fast was, because that fast cast is going to double the number of hits that fighter has with the Masamune. So instead of getting 4 hits, that fighter is going to end up getting 8 hits. Yeah. Oof, nuclear coming out from Carry, and that's probably the last thing that you want to see, especially from an early dungeon fiend, as that nuke can do upwards of 400 damage on each of your party members. And especially for someone who has black mages, or and for someone like Sarasang who has a thief, those can one-shot half of your party and essentially stop you cold right there. So Shadow's getting through relatively unscathed. We'll see what Kraken 2 has for him.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to say the same of relatively unscathed if Saracen ends up on that carry and hits that nuclear. Now, nuclear, unlike nuke, does have a max roll of 320, but that's still more than enough to wipe out most of the members of his party. Also, Brack, once again, on Lich, not going to be the play there, as Brack cannot affect Lich, and it has limited effectiveness even against the Fiends, which don't resist it, which are Tia, Kraken, in this Temple of Fiends Revisited.
I think I did see Power Bonk on Sarasang's screen, so I don't know when he picked that up. But the Power Bonk or the Power Gauntlet casts Saber on the caster themselves, which increases their damage output by 16 per hit. So for every one of those swings of the Masamune, it increases damage by 16, which, as you can probably easily see, exponentially increases damage output. And I'm curious to see how much of a difference that's going to make. And we do have Shadows here up against Kraken 2, throwing out some Invis 2 with a lot of his party members, which I think is a great move to increase that evade. So that's 3 Invis 2 casts and a Fade cast. So each of his party members is about halfway to that max evade. We're pulling out, looks like Indecision, a lot of locks, and what lock does is it allows your fighters to be more likely to hit the fiend, and it looks like that that is not good news for Shadows with that fighter standing by itself against Kraken 2, able to take it down. And I don't know if Shadows picked up life. It looks like he didn't pick up life on that fighter.
It wasn't available.
It wasn't available?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the big danger with diving early is now it's a matter of can a fighter by itself finish out the rest of this game?
This is winnable with a defense sword, but without a defense sword, this is going to be exceptionally challenging. It looks like his ribbon, which I believe he only has one of, was on that fighter. Either that or he got 3 and 256th on that white mage, which is very unlucky. But looks like Shadows is back to the drawing boards and is going to be diving again. Meanwhile, Rubes and Sarasan both on to the carry floor. Rubes about to hit carry here, and we'll have to see if his party fares a little bit better. I would say his party is between better prepared and much better prepared. So I think Rubes' party has a decent shot shot here. But, you know, we don't want to commentator curse it again. Oh, okay. Okay, that was a very, very, very good roll on that nuke to keep that white mage alive. It wasn't quote-unquote super lucky, but it was exactly what Rubes needed there. Is that white mage, as long as it survives, he can bring this whole party back up to max HP and all party members alive again.
Yeah, it looks like Sarasang wasn't quite as lucky as that attack took out everyone except that ninja, and Carrie just finishing off the ninja with one extra punch. And it looks like Sarasang's making the decision to go out and get some extra levels before trying to do a dive again. And based on what just happened with that carry, I don't disagree with the idea, though I think this grind is going to take a lot longer than he thinks it's going to, considering where he chose.
Was he supposed to die? What do you mean, was he supposed to die? 8 Essence 7 in chat. I'm going to assume no, that we do have a strategy where you let a party member die, an individual party member die, so that way the other characters get a higher share of the EXP. But in general, you don't want to wipe basically anywhere. Rubes onto the big punch himself. We often call Kraken, although in this particular case, first turn nuke from carry is definitely terrifying, but Kraken, one of the scariest parts of the Temple of Fiends Revisited. Big melee damage dealer. Can punch harder than Chaos.
Well, and it's not just punching harder, also has more hits. Like, Kraken could have upwards of 12 to 16 hits. I made up those two numbers, but it's easily in the double digits, and each one of those doing hundreds of damage. And it is a terrifying boss to face, and usually one of the most nerve-wracking spots. It looks like, yeah, Rubes is in fine shape, taking out Kraken 2. We're going to res up that second Light Warrior, and he should be in very good shape for Tia. We didn't really see much out of Tia 2 when Shadows fought him. It looked like it had low absorb and had low evade, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Rubes get through Tia 2 pretty quickly.
Oh wow, so yeah, Carrie has first spell nuke and first skill nuclear, so that's just awful. Speed and power strats are what you're going to want to do here, and that is what Shadows is correctly adapting to. Now, I did want to point out the difference in levels. So we talked a lot about level 24. And the reason we say level 24 is because that is when the knight gets his 5th swing, which is about a 28 to 29% increase in damage for that knight. And even more than that, it's multiplied by 2 when you're using fast. Like, the damage increases even more with fast. So that's one of the major differences between Rubes' party here and Shadows' is just how much extra damage that fighter is dealing, which lets him kill fiends faster. And the fastest way to, the safest way to get through a fiend is to kill it before it kills you, especially when you're dealing with something like Carrie with nuke and nuclear, who has relatively low HP.
Yeah, the one thing we will say is that the benefit of having nuke and nuclear on Carrie is that pulls those two spells out of our boss pool. So there is a limited number of spells that our final fiends can have, and they share them with Warmech as well. And so if you see one fiend that uses a particular really bad spell, you know that that's no longer an option for any of those other fiends. The one thing that we haven't seen so far is Cure 4, so there is one cast of Cure 4 that is available to all of our endgame bosses, and we'll see if that comes up on Chaos.
Yeah, there's 3 casts of Nuke and 4 casts of Nuclear of particular note, and a single cast of Cure 4. Those are like the big ones to keep, count of. Slow 2, Inferno also can be important. Here we go though, Rubes, our first runner to take on that unknown final boss of this game. I mean, Chaos. Smartly moving his knight into the 3rd slot. The 3rd and 4th slots have the lowest chance of getting hit, so it decreases the likelihood that his fighter gets one shot, which is very, very important. Gets decent turnover, and Chaos doesn't do much on turn 1, and oftentimes with the 4-person fighter rainbow comp, all you need is a few turns of setup, and you're going to be in great shape, getting off fast, getting off block, and getting off evasion stacking.
Yeah, all of these are very safe strats. It looks like Rubes is trying to make sure that he only has to do this once.
And I mean, having to do this once indeed, that was a big Masa swing, 8 hits for almost 900 damage, so Chaos here maxing out at 4000 HP. This fight is likely just going to take, 2-3 turns at most.
Yeah, and eventually you get to the point where you just wait with everybody and swing that sword with that fighter, potentially doing upwards of 1000 damage, and it looks like that's what he's doing right now. 10 hits right there. Chaos trying to punch, but those invis stacks are making it very unlikely that Chaos is going to punch one of those light warriors. And Rubes at 1 hour 22 minutes is our first runner to take down Chaos. And GG to Rubes. Let's be sure to throw some GGs in chat for our first runner on stream to take down Chaos.
So very quickly, yeah, Rubes finishing in 9th place overall with a 1 hour 21 minutes, finishing ahead of him Dead Paulson first, Fryteeth in second, Rob Draven in third, Guardian Marcus in fourth, Chanigan in fifth, Luffy, Pizza, Voltgloss, all finished. But I want to quickly, before we get Rubes in here for a chat, J-Man, while Sarasan and Shadaus have been struggling, J-Man, our last runner on screen to enter Topher, but with the all-powerful Black Belt, is on Tiamat 2 already, and he's kind of been sneaking up on us here. He was a little bit slower to get his orbs lit, partially because the Black Belt is kind of like a, it's like a diesel train or something. It takes a while to get going, but once it does, it's very, very difficult to stop. And he's already on Tia, and we're about to see Chaos, but I'm going to go pass over, see if Rubes would like to join us for an interview.
Yeah, and as we're going through, just as Jats bringing Rubes in, we do have Shadaus going back to that 3-eye tile, and you'll see how quickly he can pull up some of those levels just from a couple quick encounters. Already hitting level 21, and it looks like J-Man is stalling a little bit here on this Tia 2, kind of focusing more on those nuke strats, keeping his party up as best he can, throwing the nuke out. Tiamat with Inferno, which is a pretty hefty fire-based spell, bringing up the heal 3 to make sure that doesn't happen again, and that Black Belt punching out Tia 2, and hopefully we'll see J-Man fighting up against Chaos in the near future.
We are joined in the booth by our first place runner on stream, top 10 finisher Rubes. GG, Rubes.
GG, thanks.
Yeah, so, I think maybe the one setback for you there was just, you were one of the later runners on screen to get into the air just because you kind of focused on clearing entrances, and when you ended up getting back to that key, it took a little bit, but, we'll talk about that in a second, as we do have J-Man just about to pull the big man himself. We talked about Rubes being level 25 on that fighter for that critical 5th hit with the Masa. However, J-Man's Black Belt's only level 27 here, which is 5 levels away from the critical 32 breakpoint to get 2 additional hits. So we'll have to see how this Chaos goes. The nice thing for him is he does have plenty of damage support. With Fast coming out, he has locks available, we can get Invis 2s off, and many other things. But it looks like he's going to be going damage on his Red Mage. Interesting, so the Black Belt's mostly there as a tank.
Yeah, it looks like he's put the power bonk on in the defense sword on that Red Mage, so he's definitely relying on that Red Mage for most of the damage, getting the ruse out, the Invis 2, I wouldn't be surprised to see him start swinging that soon. And yeah, it does look like that black belt is merely there to take some punches if need be.
I kind of like the strategy. A 27 black belt is fairly solid, but like this Masa swinging red mage, or even a Vorpal swinging red mage with fast and power bonk is going to be doing a ton of damage very, very quickly here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like black belts are great with their number of swings, but at this particular level, the number of hits isn't going to be that much better and not nearly as much damage per swing. So I think in the scenario, in Chaos throwing out a nuke, which I don't think we saw from Rubes when he did his dive, again prioritizing that red mage, and we'll see if he has enough damage to actually make this work.
I do believe like he has the damage and he has the cure 4. He might need to get another power bonk or 2 off here.
Mm-hmm.
But this is definitely winnable for him, yeah. So nice adjustment into the power bonks. I believe this is what he needs to do to get a little bit extra damage per swing. There's always a trade-off between doing damage now or doing more damage later, right? It's kind of like a number of classic mathematical optimization problems. And he's essentially trying to guess how much HP does Chaos have, how many turns do I need to swing, and I think one more power bonk, yeah, that's right around where he wants to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure about the throwing out the Zeus Gauntlet from the white mage. I might be focusing on trying to keep that HP as high as possible on that red mage. But if that red mage is putting out 500 damage per swing, that's a great amount of damage, and he should be in a good position to take out this Chaos pretty soon.
Nuke is scary here, because once again, even Nuclear will take out this red mage potentially. 320 max roll on Nuclear, 400 damage max roll on Nuke, and there's 1 nuke left and at least 3 Nuclears. Or maybe 3 Nuclears, but no matter. J-Man, our second on-screen runner, he finishes in 12th place after Silky Slim and Clementi... another name.
Clementitus.
Thank you. And J-Man finishes in 12th place with a official time of 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 19 seconds. So let's go back over to Rubes here as our other runners continue to dive through Temple of Fiends Revisited. We will revisit them once they get a little bit closer. Rubes, kind of any initial thoughts on the seed?
You hear us, Rubes?
Yeah, some reason I got disconnected from the Discord.
Yeah. Technology, right?
Yeah, I know. Deal with it all day. I expected it.
So, any kind of initial thoughts? I was talking a little bit before we cut over about, that key, which was just a little bit took a little while for you to get around to. Any kind of thing else that kind of stood out to you?
This took me a while to get going. It's important to buy enough camping gear early. I mean, I knew when the key was 25k or whatever it was. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ignore that for a while until I can get the money. But it took me a while to get money too, and so it was just very slow going for the first half hour, and then once I got in the air, it was fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seed kind of had the oops, I have to full clear the entire game thing going for it with like required, either items or fiends in both waterfall and ordeals. But yeah, it definitely felt like, Shadels, for example, who was our second on-screen runner to enter the Temple of Fiends Revisit, he was in the air almost 20 minutes earlier than you, right? So you definitely had some ground to make up.
Thanks.
And we are also joined by our second place on-screen runner, J-Man. GG's.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, so like a little bit of a different strategy for you with the black belt, but you were mentioned black belt getting rubbed, but your black belt seemed to mostly tank up for the last fight with your red mage being relied upon to do most of the damage. What were the reasons for like that being your final strategy choice?
I hear you guys, and it was pretty much that my black belt wasn't anywhere near 32, so he wasn't going to be hitting too hard, and I was going to have to focus on I got the extra swings with the red mage because I didn't promote either, so.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of agree with that decision. I mean, your black belts are tricky when they're before level 32. They're not really that unstoppable beast, especially with the crit rates halved. So I think that was, a good decision and something that definitely paid off. I also really liked your decision to cast Cure 4 on the red mage instead of the white mage turn 1, because if that red mage goes down, even if the white mage survives to heal another day, you have no way of winning. So that was a good decision.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Chronicle asking in chat, what's at 32 for the black belt? So the black belt gets a set number of hits at different level breakpoints. So at 21, it goes up to 6. At 32, it goes up to 10. And at 42, it goes up to... 20, 21, 6, 32, 8, 42, 10. And those are large increases of damage, right? It's essentially going from 31 to 32, once again, like a 30% increase in damage, because he's also getting some extra damage. Just in terms of damage numbers. So that's a pretty important breakpoint. I'm assuming, DVS, you're going to turn us over to Shadow's screen?
Yeah, sure. Shadaus is pulling up Tia 2. Right now, with his levels, he got through Kraken 2 okay, lost the top 2 Light Warriors, but casting out Invis 2, getting fast, switching back to lock strats, and it looks like... it looks like he's moved down his fighter to that 3rd slot, and interesting choice of focusing on the locks before doing much with Tia, because we've seen a lot of hits go through Tia already. It looked like that was about 400 something damage, and Tia 2 wasn't giving a ton of difficulty. I like the decision not to use that last Cure 4. Just throwing out some massive swings. A wall is another great choice. And the benefit of the wall is that the wall acts like a ribbon, protecting against all different types of typed damage. So that's going to prevent against that crack or any other insta-kill spells that could be taking down his party. That Thunder as well, it's going to be half of the damage at minimum for that. And there goes Tia 2. And Shadaus is more than likely going to be our next runner to get to Chaos, though I don't think he healed after that Tia 2, which is a very dangerous move. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Wall. If you have the opportunity to pick up Wall, highly recommend.
Yeah, so not healing after Tia, but did take a couple... There is the Twilight Fan Club, as we call it, which is the Whiz Vamps that can show up before Chaos. Oh, he also did not... I guess he's out of life, so not healing that red mage before Chaos. This is... it's going to be a fight for him. Gets the fast off, though. Good turn order. Going with the Invis 2. Also getting the wall off, so, worried about potential non-elemental AoEs. Gonna cast some locks, yep, that makes a lot of sense, and gonna continue the Invis 2. So yeah, so up to 3 casts of evasion, that's pretty nice against the Chaos at this scaling, 50 to 150% max. Yeah, shoutouts to Cherry Hint, Grape Gummy Worm Chaos, another fun percent flag, which alters the enemy palettes to all sorts of honestly awful combinations. My god, my eyes bleed when I see them, but whatever floats your boat. I just don't like that I can't tell the difference between like Medusas and Gurmedusas, or other enemies that are only Agamas and Sarias. How can I tell the difference?
You read their names, man. It's right there. It says Agama.
Anyways, going back to the screen at hand, we are, getting enough turns to set up here. Nice cast to heal 3. That Black Mage has survived a couple close calls with death. Getting walled making a big difference, but also, just surviving spells on 6 HP, getting through cracks. It's making a big difference in Shadaus's survivability here.
Yeah, I
White
like
Mage kind
decisions. So I was just gonna say I like these decisions to cure and just continue focusing on nukes and getting out little damage with that black belt and focusing the melee on that red mage there, or that fighter there.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's something to be said about waiting to try and go really, really, really fast, but healing is always, like, the safer play. And in a large race like this, the most costly thing Shadaus can do at this point is wipe. So he wants to make sure that he keeps his party as healthy as possible to survive a potential nuke, which we do know this Chaos has.
Yeah. Well, I also like preserving that last cure 4, because right now it would be a little preemptive. I'm waiting for this nuke to come out and bring the party down really, really low before throwing out that very last, potentially game-saving move. And it looks like Shadaus has just downed not Tia. Oh God.
Chaos, the final boss of Final Fantasy Randomizer, which DVS has played over 200 seats of.
Just 200?
And Shadaus is our 3rd place on-screen runner, 17th overall, with an official time of 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 35 seconds. So GG's to Shadaus. Yeah, he entered Temple of Fiends Revisited very, very quickly. And didn't, made some small adjustments on his later dives, but that could have been a very, very fast time. And, big shout outs to knowing when to stop opening boxes and, just finish the seed out. And, opening boxes early did pay off as he got that key and was one of our first runners in the air. Saracen, unfortunately, continued to struggle, just not quite having the levels, and that Thief not having the HP really making a difference for this comp as compared to the other runners who had at least some type of bona fide tank, whether it's the Knight or the Black Belt.
So I do want to turn attention back to J-Man and Rubes, who hopefully you guys are still in the booth with us now. But I wanted to know, just from your perspective, looking back on the seed, how did you feel getting out of the inner sea early and not having that canoe and not having any of those fiends directly in front of you? So I want to hear from Rubes first. Just what was going through your mind through that kind of early mid-game section, and what strategies were you trying to go for at that time?
Well, I always like to try to clear the inner sea first, just so I don't have to come back to it. And I believe Carrie was in Northwest, so I took her out fairly early. But then, let's see. After that, I'm like, okay, I just gotta do what I gotta do to get in the air. I want to say Canoe was at Canaria, right?
Canary Castle.
Yeah. Yeah, it was relatively early.
Yeah, so if I was like, okay, if I just have the money, I could get that key. But I was really banking on the key leading to something else. Obviously, the key was the floater. Just gonna I'm just gonna go and check everything I can, do everything I can, and get the key when I get the money.
Yeah, so the choosing to do the full clear of everything, as opposed to trying to focus on picking up money, because we did notice that you opened far fewer boxes than most of the other on-stream runners, and we can see how that definitely affects the ability to pick up that key. So J-Man, what were you thinking when you were dealing with that kind of early-ish game?
I was just trying to, avoid the catnip of opening boxes. Like I can't stop opening boxes.
Yeah, is there something that you've done to try to lower the number of boxes you open, or is that just something that's kind of like the devil on your shoulder?
Oh yeah, I mean it's because it's always, hey, that box might have a ribbon in it.
It might.
And I found one early, so it's like, dang it, I gotta keep opening boxes. Maybe there's another. Who knows?
It's a little bit like the casino where you win on one slot pull and then you're like, the next 100 must make this net positive because I won on that one slot pull. That is opening boxes in a nutshell, and yes, we are all addicted to it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think cleared out most of the inner sea because I didn't leave the inner sea until I had the key and the floater. So as soon as I got out of the inner sea, it was straight to go get the sky.
Yeah. Well, speaking of opening boxes, we're joined by Shadaus, who is our third runner on stream to finish. GG, Shadaus.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. And so the reason I bring up opening boxes is it's something that we were talking about earlier in your decision to open up a vast majority of the boxes in the inner sea what was kind of going through your mind as you were opening up those boxes? Was there something specific you were looking for, or was it just kind of force of habit?
Well, I mean, running a fighter, I always want to open some boxes, and I wouldn't have minded a second ribbon, which I did find eventually. But a lot of it was sort of feeling like I just wanted to have a good, safe amount of gold without having to farm a ton of encounters, really. Because I had a place where I was going to get levels. I found the 3 eyes pretty early, but I didn't have a ton of resources to kill them at the time, so I decided to just keep finding locations and gathering money through boxes and making sure I could buy that key and just any magic that I needed. But once I had that,
definitely
I pretty much stopped for the most part. I don't know.
That's actually what I was pointing out, is that like I was kind of giving you like, for in most seeds you don't want to be opening like the boxes in like the TFC floor, for example, like in the far bottom left, they just can be slow boxes to open. I was like, oh, I know, I was wondering if you're just opening too many boxes, but then you did a really, really good job of stopping, like, you know, cutting that out once you're like, okay, I have my win condition in front of me, I have what I need, I'm just gonna go now. And that made a huge difference for you in your ability to be the second runner on screen and kind of the first very well prepared runner on screen to enter the Temple of Fiends Revisited.
Yeah, I was really frustrated with that first dive, actually, because I had gotten to Kraken 2 and I had all my life charges still, and he cracked my white mage through ribbon. So.
Oh, was that through a ribbon? I was.
Yeah. I had
Oh.
and the white mage.
Oh, that was okay. That makes a lot more sense. I was wondering because if you prioritize putting it on your only ribbon on your knight if you only had one, because of you know, needed the damage, and then we're willing to be like, if my white mage survives by itself, it's not winning anyways. But that crack through a ribbon is atrocious. So for viewers, that is a
really
3 in 256 chance of that white mage dying there. So Shadows rolled the worst of crit fails.
Yeah, and I was, I was watching people finish in the chat, so I was pretty sure that if that hadn't happened, I could have placed probably within 6th or 7th, probably. But yeah, the only incentive that I didn't go get was the defense, and I did that because I had 3 Invis 2 casters, so I figured I didn't need it. So yeah.
No,
yeah,
that's
it's as someone who has notoriously bad luck, I can relate to, like, really you made a very risky play in diving Temple of Fiends early. You made the proper adjustments, and that downing of your white mage just had that unfortunate effect. And for whatever reason, I feel like the second dive always goes worse than the first dive when you're doing a risk like that. So I thought the choice to bounce out and pick up some more levels on the eyes, as hard as that is, was the right decision, even if it was going to take a little bit more time. And as someone who did, it was like 19 dives, one after the other, my first Duck Derby round. Yeah, hats off to making the decision to bounce out and pick up some levels.
Yeah, thanks.
And unfortunately, Sarasan, once again, Sarasan has been kind of in a low level position for most of the seed, but did just get 3 party members taken out with Bane, all of his damage dealing members, and has unfortunately forfeit from the race. So with that is going to be our last on-screen runner finishing. We still have a number of runners finishing up. Remember, if you finish, you are guaranteed points in our Duckling Derby, our Mario Kart style race. And yeah, just a little bit of analysis on what was happening to Sarasan there. Like, he was very much stuck at a bit of a lower level, and that was causing a large number of issues. Not only that, he was also with the Thief comp, which can be hugely beneficial, but suffers against exactly one thing, and that one thing is non-elemental AoEs, of which Carrie had all of them. So, you know, a mixture of coming in at slightly lower levels, really pushing the limits to try and go as fast as possible. And Sarasan was the first person on screen to enter the Temple of Fiends Revisited, so, you know, props have to be given for that, pushing the limits, but in exchange just got punished by exactly the Temple of Fiends Revisited that he couldn't deal with. And we'll see if Sarasan wants to join us for an interview here.
Yeah, I do have one question for all three of our runners, and whoever can answer this, feel free to. Do you know what next week's flags are?
I should probably look at that.
My preparation per week has gotten worse and worse. That's for certain.
The only reason I ask is if I were you, I wouldn't have a clue. And Jat, you can feel free to correct me as I'm wrong, as you've been working very hard with these flag sets, but it does look like we have a bit more of a spring tournament style flag set with 2 loose. And
that's the only thing I remember about it, 2 loose.
Yeah, and it's a great preparation for our spring tournament, which is coming up in a couple months, where anyone is invited to enter into the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised to see a large number of our ducks entering the tournament, and this flag set is really designed to be that whole, hey, if you're looking to get into that spring tournament, here's a flag set that's a little bit more in line with it. So again, chat, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it's too loose. It's designed to be kind of one step away from the spring tournament in terms of difficulty. So like scaling is slightly lower, encounter rate is slightly lower, EXP is slightly higher, but for the most part, it's pretty standard spring tournament style things. So I hope everyone gets a chance to kind of enjoy that. I was one of the lead flag crafters on it, so I hope everyone gets a chance to appreciate the joy that is more traditional spring tournament, go and play
Chat
a more
style
standard go play a more standard Final Fantasy randomizer experience as compared to free enterprise shard hunt, all loose,
The fun stuff.
5.0 experience. Anyways, we are joined in the booth by our final person on screen, Saracen. GG Saracen, tough break there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
I mean, I saw you hang out in chat at the end there. Once again, these runners are on a 10-minute delay, so them hanging out in chat, totally cool at the end of after they finish their race. I kind of gave you my analysis. Is there anything that you kind of wanted to add to that, or anything that I might have missed?
This was exactly what I feared, and that's exactly what you said there. I'd been practicing this comp over the course of the weekend. I did a bunch of practice seeds and did not have this kind of bad luck. I think part of it is I didn't take as many walking fights as I should have, and I certainly didn't find a grinding place that worked. And a lot of that was based off of how late I was getting resources to do grinds. I'm not getting 3rd and 4th level spells until 40, 50 minutes in. Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually talking at the beginning. I'm a huge Thief fan, so I was pulling for you with the Thief Rainbow comp. And just like you said, it's such a gamble, because especially post-promotion, if you find that katana that always happens to roll up when you don't have a thief, or you find some of that higher level armor that thief can pick up, it really can be a very powerful comp going into to Topher. And this just had a bunch of weird nuances to it that made that particular strategy just harder to finish.
Yeah, I mean, weird nuances / the single nuance from the very beginning, which is non-elemental AoEs in Topher. If your thief isn't level 28 or 29 and Saracen's thief was 10 levels below that the first dive, nuke's gonna make your life miserable, and that's kind of unfortunately what happened here. And that's just, sometimes rando's gonna rando like that, and when you push the limits, try and go as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's what happened here, and I was sad to see, because I had seen you practicing a ton. I know that comp's good. You played it very, very well. It's just Topher said no, and sometimes that's what happens.
Yeah, and I'll roll with it. I'll stick with my nice points for now, and go into 2 loose, and hopefully not get trolled by it.
2 loose is joyous, happy flags. They're both going to be in Matoya's cave or something, and you'll all be in great shape. Definitely not marsh locked or anything awful like that is going to happen next week, or TFC. No way, 0% chance.
So we are at. Go ahead, chat.
So as we kind of enter the end of this evening, I did want to give our runners an opportunity to kind of give their final thoughts on the seed as we enter week number 4. So I will start with our first on-screen runner to finish. Rubes, any final thoughts?
It just it was a fun seed. Just watching how all the other ducks have really come along in the last couple weeks is it's just so impressive, and I hope they're having as much fun as I am, and look forward to racing them again next week.
Yep. Congratulations on your new orange banner. Looking pretty fly in orange. Rubes, our winner, of course, of the tournament on Sunday, gets a custom color in the Discord for winning a tournament. So, yeah. Moving over to our second on-screen runner, J-Man. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for calling these races, and Dark Moon and Ale for putting up with me flailing literally as the rope was trying to drop. I had to reboot my computer, so I'm sure that made them scramble a bit. But other than that, it's you guys behind the scenes that make these things happen.
Yeah, definitely. Big shout-outs to both Ale and Dark Moon, as well as RPG Limit Break for having us tonight. Shadows, our third on-stream runner. Any final thoughts?
Well, just, thank you to the community. It's been really fun getting to know this game. It's a really, really, really great experience. For this seed in particular, it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. I really enjoyed getting done pretty fast, but then, cracked through a ribbon, so.
You can tell the stories to all the ducks next derby. When I was a duck, I got cracked through a ribbon when I was about to finish in 6th. Yeah, that's the joy of being a vet, is you get to yell at those young ducks about all your war stories.
It'll be great.
And moving over to Saracen, any final thoughts on this seed?
As the others have said, thank you again for commentary, restream, tracking. Thanks to RPG Limit Break for hosting. I may not have finished, but right up until I, got tilted beyond space and time, I was having a good time, and I look forward to finishing out the tournament next week.
Absolutely. I'm hoping for a 0 forfeit week 4. May the loose loot be in TFC. So I've been Jat, I've been hanging out, and thanks again to everyone, and I'm going to pass it over to DVS to get us out of here. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much, chat. And again, we've already heard it, but thank you again to RPG Limit Break for hosting us tonight. Ale sitting on tracking for us, Dark Moon EX with the restream. Congratulations to all of our runners, and especially all of those runners that are off stream in our 30-plus member Duck Derby. This is the third of 4 weeks in this particular tournament, designed for new runners to run against other new runners and enjoy the experience of learning the game and the joys of racing together. So join us next week, same time, same place, for the finals of our Duck Derby. We do have other things coming up in the Final Fantasy Randomizer community. Feel free to join us on the Discord and go to finalfantasyrandomizer.com, and you can run some of your first randomizer seeds on your own. But if you do jump into that Discord, head over to the new player Duck Pond and introduce yourself. We'd be happy to explain how to get started and how to run through your first seed. And there are tons of people that are eager to answer any questions you have. So thanks again to everybody. Thank you, viewers, for sticking with us and for asking some great questions about this game. I hope you join us next time. Until we meet again, I'm DVS, that's Jat, and we hope you guys have a great day.